So there I was, Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. shift at St. Mary's Hospital. I'd been a nurse there for exactly 11 months. I loved my job, the routine, the predictability, the clean white walls that made me feel safe. Mr. Henderson was in room 407, same room he'd been in since his car accident back in March. The doctor said his brain activity was good, but nobody expected him to wake up anytime soon. I was checking his vitals like I did every morning, humming along to the radio in my head, when his hand moved. Just a tiny twitch. Then his eyes opened. Not the confused, groggy opening you usually see. No, these eyes were sharp, focused, terrified. He grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and pulled me close. "You're supposed to be dead," he whispered, his voice raspy from weeks of not speaking. My clipboard clattered to the floor. Time stopped. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about running from your past, it always finds a way to catch up. "And Mr. Henderson?" He knew my real name. "Rebecca," he said. "Rebecca Hartman. I saw you at the funeral. You were in the casket." My blood ran cold. See, nobody at this hospital knew me as Rebecca. I was Sarah Miller now. Sarah Miller now. Sarah Miller with the boring past and the clean record and the smile that never quite reached my eyes. I'd legally changed my name 3 years ago, moved across 2 states, reinvented everything about myself. New hair color, new style, new personality. The old Rebecca? She was supposed to be gone. Dead and buried, just like everyone thought. I pulled away from Mr. Henderson, tried to laugh it off. "Sir, you're confused. The coma," but he cut me off. "The funeral was at Riverside Chapel. August 14th, 2022. You wore a blue dress. There were white lilies everywhere. Every single detail was correct." My hands started shaking. How could a complete stranger know about a funeral that never should have happened? A funeral for someone who was very much alive. Because that funeral wasn't an accident, it was my escape plan. Let me back up. 3 years ago I was Rebecca Hartman, married to Detective James Hartman. On paper we were perfect. The beautiful house, the successful careers, the couple everyone envied. But behind closed doors, James was a monster. The kind who knew exactly how to hurt you without leaving marks the doctors would question. The kind who used his badge as a weapon. I tried to leave him twice. Both times, he found me within 48 hours. He had connections everywhere, other cops, judges, people who owed him favors. The second time, he told me something that made my blood freeze: "If you ever try to leave again, I'll make sure you disappear. And everyone will think it was your choice." So I realized something: if I wanted to be free, Rebecca Hartman had to die. Not just leave. A death so convincing that even James would have to believe it. And I had help from the one person he'd never suspect. My sister Linda worked at Riverside Funeral Home. Had for 15 years. She knew every trick, every loophole, every way to make paperwork disappear or appear. When I told her my plan, she didn't hesitate. "I'll do it," she said. "But Rebecca, if this doesn't work perfectly, he'll kill you. You know that, right?" I knew. God, I knew. But staying meant dying slowly, and at least this way I had a chance. Linda helped me find a body, a Jane Doe from the county morgue, same height and build as me, a woman with no family to claim her. We dressed her in my clothes. Linda did the makeup, made the face unrecognizable enough that people would need to rely on the paperwork. The death certificate said, "Car accident, severe facial trauma, closed casket recommended." My parents were devastated. My friends were shocked. And James? James stood at my funeral and cried like he'd lost the love of his life. The man who'd given me black eyes stood there and played the grieving husband perfectly. I watched the whole thing from a car parked down the street. I sat in that rental car wearing a black wig and sunglasses, watching everyone I loved mourn me. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. My mom collapsed at the graveside. My dad had to hold her up. And there was James, shaking hands and accepting condolences like the perfect grieving spouse. I memorized every detail of that day because I knew I could never go back. The blue dress in the casket, my favorite one. The white lilies, my mom's choice. The readings, the music, everything. After the funeral, I drove straight to Arizona, became Sarah Miller and started over. For 3 years I was free. I could breathe. I could smile real smiles. I dated again, laughed again, lived again. Then 6 months ago Mr. Henderson arrived in my ICU. A week later, another patient, Mrs. Chen from room 315, came out of her coma and stared at me. "I know you," she whispered. "From somewhere, you were dead." I told myself it was coincidence. But 3 patients in 6 months? That wasn't coincidence. After Mr. Henderson's revelation, I did what I should have done after Mrs. Chen. I went to the hospital records and pulled the files on all 3 patients who'd recognized me. The first one was Tom Bradley, came out of a coma in April. The second was Mrs. Chen in July. Now Mr. Henderson in September. On the surface, they had nothing in common. Different ages, different backgrounds, different reasons for being in comas. But here's what made my skin crawl: all 3 had lived in my old city. The same city where Rebecca Hartman died. The same city where James still worked as a detective. This couldn't be random. Someone was sending these people here. Someone wanted me found. I looked over my shoulder constantly now. Every shadow made me jump. That feeling Mr. Henderson mentioned, of being watched, followed, hunted, it wasn't just in my head anymore. Someone knew I was alive. Someone knew where I was. And they were using coma patients to send me a message. But why coma patients? And then I realized something that made me sick. Coma patients can't be questioned by other nurses, can't have their stories verified or challenged. They wake up, say something cryptic, and everyone just assumes it's confusion from brain trauma. It's the perfect way to deliver a message without leaving a trail. My ex-husband, who thinks I'm dead, was a detective. He knew how to work the system. How to plant seeds of information without getting his hands dirty. He'd done it before, with witnesses and suspects. He'd put ideas in people's heads so smoothly they'd swear the thoughts were their own. But here's what really scared me: how was he getting to these patients? How was he making sure they ended up in my ICU, on my floor, during my shifts? I checked the admission records. All 3 came through the ER on nights when Dr. Patterson was on duty. Dr. Patterson, who'd recently transferred from, guess where? My old city. The same hospital where James's brother worked as an administrator. The trap was so much bigger than I'd thought. I started noticing things I'd missed before. The new security guard who always seemed to be near the ICU when I was working. The system upgrade that installed new cameras in all the patient rooms last month. The administrator who kept asking me personal questions in the break room, where I lived, if I had family nearby, whether I was dating anyone. They were building a file on me. Watching me. Confirming I was the woman they were looking for. And the worst part? I couldn't run again. If I disappeared, it would confirm everything. If I stayed, they'd eventually make their move. I was trapped between 2 terrible choices. That night, I went home to my tiny apartment and did something I'd avoided for 3 years. I looked up James on social media. His profile was public. Recent photos showed him looking older, harder. But what stopped my heart was the photo from last week. Him standing outside a hospital. My hospital. The caption read, "Consulting on a case in Arizona. Some mysteries refuse to stay buried." He was here. In my city. And he knew. I had 2 options. Option 1, run again. Change my name again, move again, spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. Option 2, stop running and face this head on. For 3 years, I'd chosen survival over living. I'd chosen hiding over fighting. But sitting in my apartment that night, looking at James's smug face on my phone screen, something inside me snapped. I was done being afraid. Rebecca Hartman had died so Sarah Miller could live, but maybe it was time for Sarah to be brave enough for both of them. I needed help. I needed someone who couldn't be bought or intimidated or fooled by James's detective badge. And I knew exactly who to call. My sister Linda answered on the first ring. "I was wondering when you'd call," she said. "I've been watching his social media too. Beck, he's been planning this for months, maybe years." My voice shook when I asked, "Do you still have evidence? From before?" "Better," Linda said. "I have proof he's been doing this to other women." Linda had been investigating James since my death, not just watching, actively digging into his past, his cases, his relationships. "There were 3 women before you," Linda told me. "All left him or tried to. All had accidents or disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Nobody connected the dots because James was the investigating officer on 2 of them." My hands went numb. I'd known James was dangerous, but this? This was serial predator territory. And Beck, Linda continued, her voice tight, there's a woman right now. Her name is Melissa. She's been married to him for 2 years. From what I can tell, it's starting again. The control, the isolation, the escalation. Another woman was living my nightmare. Another woman was trapped with a man who knew exactly how to break someone without leaving evidence. I felt sick, angry, responsible somehow, even though I knew that was crazy. If I'd spoken up 3 years ago instead of faking my death, could I have stopped him from hurting someone else? Linda, we have to save her. But first we need to know how he found me. I found that out too, Linda said, and her voice had that tone, the one that meant I wasn't going to like what came next. Remember your friend from college, Amy Peterson? My stomach dropped. Amy had been my best friend since freshman year. She was at my funeral. She'd sobbed when she hugged James and told him how sorry she was. What about her? I asked, but I already knew. She figured it out 6 months ago. Saw your picture in some nursing magazine, one of those healthcare heroes features your hospital did. She contacted James. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Amy knew I was alive and told the man I'd died to escape. But why? I whispered. Why would she do that? Linda sighed. Money, partly. James paid her $20,000. But also, Beck, she was in love with him. Had been for years. She thought if she helped him find you, proved you'd lied, he'd leave Melissa and choose her. I wanted to throw up. My best friend had sold me out for a man who would eventually hurt her too. Where is Amy now? I asked, and Linda went quiet. Beck, Amy's missing. Has been for 2 weeks. My apartment suddenly felt too small, too dark, too exposed. Missing how? Linda's voice was careful. She stopped showing up to work, stopped posting on social media. Her landlord did a wellness check, apartment looked normal, but her car's gone, her phone's off, and her bank account hasn't been touched. James eliminated his accomplice. The pattern was so clear now. Use someone, then make them disappear when they became a liability. Amy had thought she was special, thought she was different, thought James would choose her. She'd learned the same lesson I almost learned too late. James Hartman didn't love anyone. He collected people like weapons and discarded them when he was done. Linda, I need to come home. The words surprised me as much as they surprised her. What? Beck, no, that's exactly what he wants. He's trying to flush you out. I know, I said, looking at my hands that had saved dozens of lives over the past 3 years. But I can't let him hurt Melissa, or anyone else. Then we do this smart, Linda said, and we're going to need cops we can trust. Linda had already been working with a detective in the Internal Affairs Division, Detective Maria Santos, a woman who'd been trying to build a case against James for 8 months. She knows he's dirty, Linda explained. But he's careful, he's smart. She needs something concrete, something that proves his pattern. That's when I understood what I had to do. I was the evidence. A dead woman who was very much alive. A staged death that involved fraud, falsified records, and a conspiracy that Linda and I had built out of desperation. We could both go to jail for what we'd done, but it was also proof that James was dangerous enough to make someone fake their own death. Maria needs to hear your story, Linda said. All of it. On record. And then we use you as bait. Bait. The word hung in the air between us. He's already here, I said. Already watching the hospital. We just need to make him make a move. There's something else, Linda said. The coma patients? They're not random victims James found. Tom Bradley, Mrs. Chen, and Mr. Henderson, Maria ran background checks on all of them. Beck, they're all connected to James's old cases. Cases where evidence went missing or witnesses changed their stories. My mind raced back through the patient charts. Mr. Henderson had been in a car accident, but what if it wasn't an accident? Mrs. Chen had fallen down her stairs. Tom Bradley had a medication interaction that put him in a coma. James wasn't just using these patients to send me a message. He'd put them in comas. Oh my God, I whispered. He tried to kill them, and when they ended up in my ICU instead of dying, he used it as an opportunity. Exactly, Linda said. These are people who knew too much about his dirty work as a cop. He tried to silence them permanently. The fact that they survived and ended up in your ICU, he's improvising. Turning witnesses into messengers. These people hadn't been attacking me, they'd been trying to warn me. They'd recognized me from my funeral because James had shown them my picture. Probably threatened them with it. Linda, if they wake up enough to testify, they won't, she interrupted. Unless we protect them. James has someone inside your hospital. I thought about everyone I worked with. My supervisor Janet, who'd always been supportive. The other nurses on my floor. The doctors. The administrators. And then it hit me, Dr. Patterson. The one who'd transferred from my old city. The one on duty for all 3 suspicious coma patient admissions. He wasn't just a coincidence. He was James's plant. Maria's getting a warrant for Dr. Patterson's phone records, Linda told me. But Beck, you need to be careful. If Patterson realizes we're onto him, he might try something at the hospital. These patients are vulnerable. You're vulnerable. She was right. I was surrounded by people who could kill with a simple medication error and nobody would question it. A wrong dose, a switch to Vorbag, a contaminated line. Hospitals were full of ways to hurt people that looked like accidents. That night at work, I watched Dr. Patterson differently. The way he checked Mr. Henderson's chart. The way his eyes followed me down the hallway. The way he lingered near the medication room. And then I saw him do something that made my blood run cold. Dr. Patterson was standing at Mr. Henderson's foreline, a syringe in his hand. Not the normal medication syringe, something from his pocket. I didn't think. I just moved. Dr. Patterson, Mr. Henderson's family is here to see him. They're asking for you. It was a lie, but it worked. He slipped the syringe back into his pocket, smiled that professional smile, and said, "Of course, I'll be right there." As soon as he left the room, I checked Mr. Henderson's for. Nothing had been injected yet. I'd interrupted him just in time. But now he knew I was watching. My hands shook as I documented everything, the time, what I saw, my concerns. I texted Linda, "He just tried something." I stopped it. "What do I do?" Her response was immediate, "Get out. Right now. Maria's on her way, but you need to be in public." I looked at Mr. Henderson's sleeping face. If I left, Patterson would come back. If I stayed, I was a sitting target. That's when the fire alarm went off and all the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. The fire alarm blared. Hospital protocol meant evacuating patients, but something felt wrong. This wasn't a drill. I ran to the nurse's station. Janet was on the phone with security, her face pale. "They're saying it's a system malfunction, no actual fire. But the doors are locked, electronic locks are engaged. We can't get out." We were trapped. All of us. The patients, the staff, everyone on the ICU floor. I looked down the hallway and saw Dr. Patterson emerge from the medication room. He wasn't panicking like everyone else. He was calm, purposeful. Moving toward Mr. Henderson's room. I stepped in front of the door. "The floor's on lockdown, doctor. We need to focus on patient safety protocols." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Sarah, why don't you go help with the other patients? I'll handle Mr. Henderson." "I'm assigned to this patient," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. His hand moved to his pocket, where I knew that syringe was waiting. "We both know that's not your real name," he said quietly. "And we both know why you're really protecting him." Dr. Patterson moved closer, and I could smell his cologne, expensive, clinical. "Rebecca Hartman, impressive what you did, faking your death." James was devastated. For about 6 months. Then he started to wonder. Started digging, and when he found you? He laughed softly. He called me. His old friend from medical school. Asked if I wanted to help with a special project. My back was against Mr. Henderson's door. Other nurses were evacuating patients at the far end of the hall, too busy to notice this conversation. "You're going to inject something into Mr. Henderson's fore," I said. "Make it look like his brain couldn't handle waking up from the coma. One less witness." "Not just him," Dr. Patterson said casually, like we were discussing the weather. "All 3 of them. Tonight. While everyone's distracted by the malfunction, and then you'll have a tragic accident during the evacuation. Smoke inhalation. Very sad." I felt for the panic button on my badge, but my fingers found nothing. It had been disabled. Of course it had. James had planned everything perfectly. Except he hadn't counted on one thing. Mr. Henderson was awake and listening to every word. The door behind me opened. Mr. Henderson stood there, weak and shaking, but alert. He was holding his forepole like a weapon. touch her and I call every nurse on this floor, he said, his voice rough but loud. I heard everything, doctor, and I know where the bodies are buried, literally. Dr. Patterson's confident expression cracked. You should be unconscious. I increased your sedatives this morning, and I pretended to sleep, Mr. Henderson interrupted. I've been pretending for days, waiting for you to make a mistake. Turns out Mr. Henderson wasn't just a witness to one of James's dirty cases, he was an undercover investigator who'd gotten too close. James had run him off the road 6 weeks ago, but hadn't confirmed the kill. Maria Santos sent me, Mr. Henderson continued. This was a sting operation from the beginning, we just needed you to try something on record. He nodded to the ceiling, where a camera lens glinted in the emergency lighting. Say hello to Internal Affairs, Dr. Patterson. They've been watching for the last 10 minutes. Patterson lunged for me anyway, and that's when everything went sideways. Dr. Patterson was faster than I expected. His hand closed around my wrist, yanking me away from the door. The syringe appeared in his other hand, the one meant for Mr. Henderson's fore. If I'm going down, you're coming with me, he snarled. Years of nursing gave me reflexes he didn't expect. I twisted my wrist the way we're taught to break free from confused patients, stomped on his instep, and shoved the V-pole between us. The syringe flew from his hand, skittering across the floor. Mr. Henderson hit the emergency call button, and suddenly alarms were blaring even louder than the fire alarm. But Dr. Patterson wasn't giving up. He tackled me, and we both went down hard. My head cracked against the tile. Stars exploded across my vision. I could hear Mr. Henderson shouting, hear running footsteps, but Dr. Patterson's hands were around my throat now, squeezing. James said dead or alive, he hissed in my face. Dead is easier. The last thing I saw before passing out was a familiar face, but it wasn't help. James Hartman stood in the doorway, and for a split second, I thought I was having a near-death hallucination. But no, he was really there, watching Dr. Patterson strangle me with an expression that was almost annoyed. Patterson, stop. She's no good to me dead until I get what I need. Dr. Patterson's hands loosened slightly. I gasped for air, my vision clearing. James walked closer, and I could see he was wearing latex gloves. He'd planned to get his hands dirty tonight. Hello, Rebecca. You look different. Shorter hair, lighter color. Lost some weight. But I'd know those eyes anywhere. His voice was the same, calm, controlled, terrifyingly reasonable. The voice that used to tell me he hit me because he loved me. I have to admit, the whole fake death thing was impressive. How long did it take to plan? How much did you pay your sister? He crouched down beside me. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me where you've hidden your insurance policy, the evidence you think will protect you. Then you're going to have an unfortunate accident. And if I don't? I managed to croak out. He smiled. Then Melissa dies tonight instead. James pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Melissa, his current wife, tied to a chair in what looked like a basement. She was conscious, terrified, tears streaming down her face. She's at our house right now, James said conversationally. With a friend of mine watching her. If I don't call him in the next 30 minutes with a code word, he follows his instructions. Do you want to know what those instructions are? I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. This man had another woman ready to murder while he was here murdering me. There's no evidence, I finally said. I didn't keep anything. I just wanted to disappear. James laughed. You're lying. You're many things, Rebecca, but you're not stupid. You kept something, insurance, in case I ever found you. Your sister probably has it. So here's the deal. You call Linda right now, tell her to bring everything to this hospital, and maybe Melissa lives through the night. The ceiling camera was still recording. Mr. Henderson was still conscious, witnessing everything. But James didn't care. He was that confident in his ability to control the situation. That's when I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Police, hands up. Detective Maria Santos burst through the ICU doors with 6 officers behind her. They'd cut the electronic locks. The malfunction was over. Dr. Patterson released me immediately, hands up. But James? James didn't move. He kept that phone in his hand, his thumb hovering over the screen. Maria, he said calmly. Been a while. How's Internal Affairs treating you? Put the phone down, James, she ordered, her weapon trained on him. We have officers at your house right now. Melissa is safe. Your friend is in custody. It's over. For the first time, I saw James's mask slip. His jaw tightened. His eyes went cold and flat, the same look he used to get right before he'd hit me. This recording won't hold up, he said. I'll say I was trying to rescue my dead wife from a deranged doctor. I'm the victim here. Except for the part where you admitted to planning her murder on camera, Maria said. She nodded to me. Rebecca, are you okay? I couldn't answer. Couldn't process that it was really happening. And then James did something that proved he'd rather die than face accountability. James grabbed the syringe from the floor, the one Dr. Patterson had dropped. Before anyone could react, he had it pressed against his own neck. Everyone back, he shouted. Or I inject this and you lose your case. Dead suspect, no testimony, no trial. Just a tragic end to a troubled detective. Maria kept her weapon steady. James, that's not going to help you. No, but it'll help my reputation, he said. Can't prosecute a dead hero. And that's how they'll remember me, not as an abuser, but as a detective who died during a confrontation with a corrupt doctor. He was going to do it. I could see it in his eyes. He'd rather die than let the truth come out, rather let people remember him as a victim than face justice. But here's what James didn't know. Dr. Patterson hadn't filled that syringe with poison. I'd seen him take it from the saline supplies. It was empty, just air. If James injected it into his neck, he'd maybe get an air embolism, but probably he'd just embarrass himself. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Rebecca, what's so funny? James demanded, and I told him the truth. It's empty, James. Dr. Patterson was going to inject air into Mr. Henderson's foreline, 'cause an embolism that would look natural. But you grabbed it before he could fill it with anything. I watched the realization dawn on his face. He looked at Dr. Patterson, who nodded miserably. James's grand final gesture was a bluff with an empty syringe. You've lost, I said, standing up despite my shaking legs. Your accomplice is going to testify against you to save himself. Your current wife is safe and probably telling officers everything you've done to her. Your ex-wife, me, is alive and ready to testify. And it's all on camera. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. The man who'd controlled my life for so long. The monster who'd made me so desperate I'd faked my own death. I loved you, he said finally, and it sounded almost genuine. In my own way. No, I said clearly. You loved controlling me. There's a difference. Maria handcuffed him then, but as they led him away he said something that haunted me for weeks. Rebecca, this isn't over. I have friends. People who owe me favors. People who know what you did, fraud, falsifying records, hiding evidence. You think you're the hero of this story? He laughed. You're just a criminal who got lucky. The officers pulled him away, but his words echoed in my head. He was right about one thing, what Linda and I had done was illegal. We'd faked a death, falsified documents, buried a Jane Doe under my name. We'd broken so many laws in the name of survival. Maria must have seen my face because she pulled me aside. We need to talk about that, she said gently. The fake death, the records. I need you to know that while I understand why you did it, there will be consequences. The DA will want to review everything. My freedom had come at a price I hadn't fully calculated. I could finally stop running from James, but I might end up in jail anyway. How much trouble am I in? I asked. Maria sighed. That depends on a lot of factors. But there's something you should know about the woman in your casket. We identified her, Maria said. Her name was Jennifer Walters. She wasn't a Jane Doe with no family like you thought. She was one of James's victims from 5 years ago, a woman who tried to report him for assault and then disappeared. Her family has been looking for her ever since. My legs almost gave out. The woman Linda and I had buried under my name, she was another one of James's victims. We didn't know, I whispered. Linda pulled her from the morgue records. They said no family, no identification. Because James falsified those records, Maria explained. He killed her, made sure she'd never be identified, and stored her body in the county system. When you and Linda took her for your staged death, you actually solved a 5-year-old missing persons case. It was too much to process. I'd thought we were just breaking laws to save my life. Instead, we'd accidentally uncovered evidence of James's previous murder. Does that help me? I asked. Or make it worse? Maria's expression told me the answer was complicated. It means you're not the criminal here. But there's still someone who needs to face consequences for the fraud. Linda turned herself in 3 days later. She confessed to everything: stealing the body, falsifying the death certificate, helping me create a new identity. She took full responsibility and insisted I'd only been trying to survive. Your sister is looking at 2 to 5 years, Maria told me over coffee a week after James's arrest. The DA offered a plea deal because her actions, while illegal, helped solve Jennifer Walters' murder and exposed a corrupt cop. But Rebecca, she's going to prison. I'd escaped James, but Linda was paying the price for my freedom. I visited her before her sentencing. She sat across from me in the county jail, wearing an orange jumpsuit, and she smiled. Actually smiled. Don't you dare feel guilty, she said. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. You're alive. You're safe. That's all that matters to me. I can't let you go to prison for saving my life, I said, tears streaming down my face. You already did, she said gently. And I made my choice 3 years ago when you called me desperate and terrified. Besides, she added, I'm not going in alone. I made sure of that. During Maria's investigation of the funeral home, they found something Linda had been documenting for years. 7 other Jane Does who'd passed through Riverside Funeral Home, all with falsified records, all connected to James Hartman's old cases. 7 more women who'd disappeared, 7 more families who'd never gotten closure. Linda had been building the case against James the entire time, collecting evidence, taking photos, copying files. She'd known eventually it would all come out. She'd known she'd face consequences. But she'd done it anyway because it was the right thing to do. Your sister is a hero, Maria told me. Her documentation is going to bring justice to 7 families who thought their daughters, sisters, mothers were gone forever. The DA is taking that into consideration. She might only serve 18 months with good behavior. It still felt like too much. But Linda had made her choice with eyes wide open. She'd chosen justice over safety, chosen truth over freedom, just like I'd finally learned to do. And then I got a call that changed everything again. Mr. Henderson wanted to see me. Mr. Henderson was sitting up in bed, looking stronger every day. I owe you an apology, he said when I entered his room. For scaring you that first day. Maria told me you were here, told me to recognize you, to say those specific words. We needed Dr. Patterson to panic and make a move. I nodded. I understand, you were doing your job. But here's what Maria didn't tell me to say, he continued. Thank you for protecting me anyway. Even when you thought I was a threat, you stayed and fought for me. That's a real nurse. That's a real hero. I sat down in the chair beside his bed, exhausted in every possible way. I don't feel like a hero. My sister's going to prison. I broke so many laws. You survived, he interrupted. And because you survived, 7 families are getting their daughters back. Melissa is safe. James and Dr. Patterson are facing life in prison. Amy's body was recovered and her family has closure. You didn't just save yourself, Rebecca. You saved everyone he would have hurt next. The words settled over me like a warm blanket. For 3 years I'd been Sarah Miller, the nurse who smiled but never quite belonged. Now I could finally be myself again, not the terrified Rebecca who'd faked her death, but someone new. Someone who'd walked through fire and come out stronger. What will you do now? Mr. Henderson asked. I looked out the window at the Arizona sunrise. Testify, help Maria close every case James touched, visit Linda every week, and maybe, I smiled for the first time in what felt like forever, maybe learn to live without looking over my shoulder. Melissa came to see me a month later. We sat in a coffee shop, 2 women who'd loved the same monster, and we talked for hours. She thanked me for saving her life. I thanked her for pressing charges. Together we started a support group for other survivors of police domestic violence, women who couldn't report their abusers because their abusers were the ones who took the reports. Linda served 16 months and came out stronger, fiercer. She started working with Maria's department, teaching investigators how to spot falsified records and hidden victims. James got life without parole. Dr. Patterson got 25 years. And me? I kept my nursing license, kept working in the ICU, kept saving lives. But now when I introduce myself to patients, I use my real name. Hi, I'm Rebecca, and I'm going to take care of you. Because I learned something important through all of this. You can't heal others until you've healed yourself. You can't save lives when you're too busy hiding from your own. That patient who woke up from a coma and said you're supposed to be dead? He was right. The old me, the terrified, controlled, broken version, she was supposed to be dead. And she is. The woman who survived? She's finally learning how to live. And if you're reading this and seeing yourself in my story, if you're trapped, if you're scared, if you think there's no way out, please hear me. There is always a way forward. You are stronger than you know. And you don't have to die to start over. Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing you can do. And sometimes it's just the beginning. So that's my story, the day a coma patient woke up and changed everything. People always ask me about medical miracles in the ICU, and honestly, Mr. Henderson's coma recovery was just the beginning. The real miracle was finding the courage to stop running. If you survived something that nearly destroyed you, drop a comment below. And if this nurse's coma story helped you today, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because true coma awakenings aren't just physical, sometimes they're about finally waking up to your own strength. Thanks for watching.